I'm thinking that is pretty good. Now for the moment of truth, we're going to jam it in there. Over. That one's going to need a little trimming. There we go. We have three options for putting air conditioning in a classic car. Number one, many classics came with air conditioning from the factory, so we could go the OE route. The advantage of this is it fits the car, it's designed for the car, you know it works. The drawback is, in this case, the parts are over 50 years old, they're not reproduced, and anything you'd find is old and questionable. The second option is aftermarket. There's a lot of places that make aftermarket air conditioning systems. The positive of those are they're new and they're readily available. The drawback is they're not designed to fit the car, and you have to make them fit, and sometimes they can be a little undersized because of that. The third option is to fabricate it from scratch, a la Project Blinky. Benefit of this is you get something that perfectly fits in your car, which can be useful if it's tight packaging. The drawback is it's a lot of work in fabrication and engineering to make sure it works. We are going to go with option number 2, the aftermarket, for a couple of reasons. One is time. It's going to be a lot quicker to install an aftermarket one than to fabricate one from scratch. And I don't want to deal with 55-year-old parts. The second reason I want to go with aftermarket is it's very cost effective. Just looking at a blower motor, an evaporator, and a heater core, they were like $150 a piece new from a parts store. So that's $450 right there just for those 3 parts. And that doesn't include a housing, a heater control valve, or diverter doors with the controls for that. Just from that standpoint, I think it's going to be a wash on cost versus doing it yourself, plus saving a lot of time. Here is our kit. We have the evaporator unit itself right here. And we're going to do some work on that. So we'll put it up on the bench. Get the hoses, which go from the evap unit to your ducts or to your outlets. We've got a bag of parts. It has some defroster ducts. It has some brackets, which we're going to be putting on. And it has some fittings and miscellaneous parts. Okay, step 1 is to install the fittings. I believe that's these with properly lubed O-rings. So the question is, does that lube come with the kit? Or are they lubed already? Supplied oil for O-rings. Not in that bundle. Yes, there is no supplied oil in there. So I'm just going to assume that they're oiled with the appropriate oil. So do these turn off or just pull off? They unscrew, and there was air, nitrogen, something in there. It would be super nice if they actually included the oil that they said they included that they didn't include. Because I don't know what kind of oil those things are compatible with. Just so I don't screw these up, we are going to use some Pritax. The DuPont guys that gave this to me said it was the best thing since sliced bread. They couldn't tell me why. I'm guessing it's because they got a really big commission selling it. Of course, I'm sure this will violate the warranty. But it's fairly inert. It was used on the space shuttle. Works in the vacuum of space. Can't be all bad. There we go. Get it snugged up. Do they have? I guess you just tighten it to one ooga dooga. There we go. That is step numero uno. Now it's the brackets. Having a hard time getting those. There's 1, 2. The screws that hold this on are already in there. So this is a little weird, but I guess it's better than me losing the bolts. That is not good. I hope I don't have to grind on this thing out of the box. I do. As you can see, this hole right here is winked, so I'm going to have to clearance that a little bit. That looks pretty good. Those are good. One more bracket. This one goes on the front. I may not use both of these, but we'll have them on there while we're fitting it. So there we go. We've got a front bracket on, we've got our rear bracket on, and I think that's all the assembly we do before we fit it in the car. Yep, that's the next step. So the next step will be fitting this puppy up under the dash. In here somewhere. Yeah, I think that front bracket's going to have to come back off. But what I discovered is this bracket kind of shoves it way up and to the side. The bottom part of the bracket, I think we're going to try bending this, and if that doesn't give us the clearance we need, it's going to get cut off. And now I have to think about this a little bit. So this is going to be in there like that, and that's the way the bracket goes, so we want it bent. Now hopefully it still fits on. There we go. Is it? It's making a little contact. There we go. 1 millimeter clearance, that's all we need. That's much better. See, now we can get it on the firewall flat at a much lower height. So the goal, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, but I don't want to block any of the glove box. I don't want to block the ashtray, and keep some space here open for the radio and controls. Those may not all be possible at the same time. These are the heat ducts. Oh, it comes out, it's right about there. So that V is pretty easy. So we want to keep this V lined up on the center of the transmission hump. We can get there, but that might be a little too low for foot clearance. So if we put it up here, it's nice and high out of the way, but it blocks a big chunk of the glove box. I guess I'll make the glove box shorter, and that's about as high as I can get it. And it still would like to go this way. So I'd like to reuse the factory defroster ducts. They're a little strange. I don't know if you can see that. One side, the driver's side, is much smaller than the passenger side. I think that might be an artifact of it being hooked up to squirrel cage blower. So the outside's probably got more velocity than the inside to get even flow. They did that. But I know this fits. This thing is going to be beat to crap by the time I get this done. So that changes things considerably. Now it hangs way down, and I can't get to the ducts. That means it would either have to come way down here and puts everything right out in the open. I don't like that. So sadly, I don't think I'm going to be able to keep the factory defrost vents, which means we're going to have to use the generic vents that came with the kit. So those vents are these, which aren't going to mate up well to anything, but they've got a lot of clearance underneath them. Here's the connectors we're looking for. This has got to be one of them. This one. Yes. So that looks about right. Although, there's one more thing I want to see. I went and got the glove box itself in fabulous shape. But more importantly, the glove box door to make sure there wasn't anything that's going to interfere. What's nice is the guide is on the opposite side of where we're putting everything. So that should be good. So there's roughly where the glove box will be. So it's mostly down. We might be able to save a lot of that, although that's going to have to be completely remade. So we can stick this up there as far as we want. Because the other thing that has to go in here is radio and heater controls. And I'm thinking that is pretty good. I don't know if we want to go up any higher. Maybe like that. We've got our holes marked to help figure out where all the stuff is going to fit, especially right here in the control stack. I made some little cardboard mock-ups of various radios, right? Which can help you at least get an idea of how much room they're going to take up. But I did go ahead and just buy a radio so we can mock it up with the actual one. Now this one is pretty shallow, which helps. Ideally, you put the things that are used more often up higher. So the radio would go up higher, the controls would go down low, but the dash is really curved at the top. And so if we put the radio up high, it would either have to come out so far, right, this side would all be sticking out of the rest of the dash, or if you set it back, you can't get to the volume knob. So the radio is going to have to go down low where it'll fit decent. It's not very curved down there. And then the controls for the HVAC will have to go on the top. Rather than holding this stupid thing up there, I'm just going to take the bracket off again and use that to mark out the holes. There we go. The bolts they give you with it have a big non-threaded shank on them, which means they're not going to work at all. What I found are two 1/4 20 carriage bolts that are way long. Maybe I'll cut them down. I don't think I want to use these permanent, but they should work to fit everything. That is going to be hot. There, 1 through, 2 through. Not for the last time. We're going to put the bracket back on and mount this puppy up. Muy difficulto. I don't mean to be super silent. It just takes a lot of concentration, at least for me, to hold a screw steady while I'm trying to thread a nut onto it. I can't see while holding up a big heavy thing. So that is not too bad. It's awful jangly. Well, we can start checking everything to see how it fits. We've got it in. So there's the airbox side, or the blower side, distribution side. So that's pretty good. Now we can try to check how everything else is going to fit in. Okay, the biggest thing is going to be the radio, and we know the radio has to go low. I think this is going to go in there just about fine. Oh yeah. Okay, here's the trim piece. Essentially the whole dash. Yeah. This will have to sit in here like this. Probably like about like that. Oh yeah, that's plenty of room. That's beautiful. That stops way short of these ducts. Those ducts will be fine. I think this is for the center vent. We're gonna have a shallow glove box. We can live with that. Here's the nipple for the drain. And we're going to install or drill a hole and look at where the hose goes.
So that's very convenient. There's already a scratch there. I think I'm going to move that in here a little bit. Probably like there. Just to keep it away from feet so it doesn't get kicked and smashed. We're going to be roughly in this area. Can you see that okay? Like right in there. So it doesn't come out and hit anything. It's clear there. We'll probably run it sideways and down to not dump it on the exhaust. So I think that's going to work just fine. That center punch doesn't want to work. Let's boost it up a little bit. Oh, come on. Is this like tool steel? The good part is this hole has to go to 5/8. Ooh, that's loud. There. A hole. And our hose will fit through nicely with clearance so I can do a grommet or something else.
Now it's time to locate the vents. We know what we're going to do for the defroster. The heater's located, but we need the vents for the AC. We're going to look at a couple of things. The first thing we're going to do is look at kind of a modern OEM system. And for that we would have a big vent there, two biggish vents in the middle, and a big vent on that side. And this one will probably be higher, like up here. Excellent for airflow, impossible to do in keeping the styling and aesthetics of the 68 Impala dash. So this is out. The next thing we're going to look at is the original Impala. They came with AC in 68, you could order as an option. And that came with a little eyeball vent down there, a big vent popping up in the middle, and a little goiter eyeball vent that kind of hung off down there. Now this is right off. This is ugly and stupid and screams afterthought. This is okay, but I don't like it so low. This I like. So I did some noodling and thinking and designing and decided I like the vents, but I don't want to have it popped up. What I really want to do is have them more incorporated into the dash, like this. That gets them up high so they can blow on the passengers, keep the cold air up. And it solves the problem of where do you put it on the driver's side where there's no room. You can go up here, it won't interfere with the dash, and it all works out pretty copacetic. I did some CADing and prototyping and came up with this. This should fit in the dash, and I made this, which is kind of a pattern of the frame. So I'm going to use this to trace out where these go on the dash. So now we're going to trace out the locations of these vents on the dash. I marked the center line with a crayon. I'm going to leave a little room between them. So those are the center two. Maybe a little bit more, maybe 4. I think 4 is the magic ticket in, but no, it's what it should be. Now I'm going to put this back on there the way it was, but I'm going to mark the outside, and that is where we're going to cut to. And then we'll just make the flange on the vent bigger. Brand new blade and the hobby knife. A lot of light strokes. You can punch it through, but then it tends to
veer off to one side or the other. There, we've got one line cut. Gonna do the rest of them and then we'll pull it out. Time to try to pull this out. I'm trying to avoid as cracking any more of it, pulling the the part we're cutting out away. So we've got most of this foam cleared out here, and we can see this part is really curving back under at that point. So when we look at this hole that we just cut, you can see the issues we ran into. This structure curves a lot right here, and we're at the very bottom of it right here. And we're almost at the very top of it here. So we've just got enough room to fit this vent in there. So it's going to have to be in two pieces. We'll cut this out. We'll glue one in from the top. We'll glue a piece in from the back that matches that radius and then mates up to the flexible ductwork. Cutting it out with the die grinder. We've got 2 slots cut. Now I'm going to try to drill holes and connect the top and bottom. There. You can get the picture from that. I'm going to drill those up and down here, drill them out bigger until they coalesce and we can get that piece out. The piece of metal is out. We got the drill holes coalesced enough to get it out. A little more work with the die grinder with the cutoff wheel. Got it all out. Now we're going to clean up these edges a little bit with a carbide bit. If I could keep ramming the die grinder into the dash pad, things would go a lot better. That's about as good as we're going to get. Now let's test fit our sample vent in here. Fits in perfect. Now put a big crack in it. Might have to try just recovering this with some vinyl over the top. I don't know how that's going to work. First thing I'm going to try to do is glue all these cracks shut. These weren't so bad because I can make the flanges a little bit bigger, but this sucks. That is a big crack. So apparently the rejuvenation with the 303 protectant spray wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Now I'm just going to do the last 2 on the outside and not film that, because filming makes things take 3 times as long. And I need to get this done before I die. Marking the holes for the vent in the dash. And it's funny, this is, it must have holes already cut for the factory air, but they're offset a little bit from center. Ours are in the center, so we have a little cutting to do here. And this one is the tightest one. Now we'll take the die grinder and just clean these edges up a little bit. Now I need to clean the foam off for real around the ducts so I can glue our, I don't know what to call these, our hose to dash interface. Designed and 3D printed these, and they connect to the inside of the dash pad, then they connect to the ductwork itself, the flexible tubing that comes with the kit. So now we need to clean off the foam. That made a mess. Still not done. But we need to have this clean because these have to be glued in. There's no way I could get in there with any type of fastener. Now we're going to glue on the inside halves of the ducts. Normally I'd use an industrial adhesive specially designed for this, but I couldn't get any for like a week. So instead we're going to do an experiment and try JB Weld plastic bonder. This should, in theory, work. It's designed to bond to plastic. This is ABS. ABS isn't one of the hardest plastics to glue, and it'll stick to metal. So, I believe this is not an epoxy. It's some sort of urethane adhesive. Now, for the moment of truth, we're going to jam it in there. Now we're going to mount the defroster ducts. What we're going to do is weld some machine screws to the bottom and attach it that way. I don't want to drive screws through because
It's very hard to get to anything on the top. It's going to look ugly and be visible. So we're going to try to weld on machine screws like studs. I'm going to put a strip of weather stripping on each end to seal it. I'd like to do it all the way around, but as you can see, there's no area on here to stick it to. So I'm going to try that and see how it seals. There we go. We're going to install the hose for the defroster vents, starting with cutting the piece they gave us in about half. Now we've got two pieces. Let's go put it on the car. So first we're going to stretch it over the entrance. There's molded hooks on the port, but I want a zip tie for a little extra insurance. So we've got the inside half of each duct glued in, and the pad is back in, and everything seems to fit pretty well. Now we're going to start rough cutting the hoses and routing from each vent back to the evaporator unit. We're going to start routing the farthest hose, which is from the passenger side all the way over to here. Goes up here, and that's about where it would be connected. Across there. On to the next longest one, the driver's side. From here to here, behind here, and down to there. Now I'm going to pull the dash pad out and attach the hoses to the back, thread it back in, and see if we can get everything hooked up. We've got everything installed. One issue I ran into is I cut the remaining hose in half that I had for the center. It's not enough. It's stretched super tight and not routed properly, so I'll have to get some more hose to do that right. But everything's hooked up. I'm going to take the other camera and kind of show you this routing from there is really tight. I see why they did the little goiter down there. It would have probably been easier to run it underneath to that, but I don't know, I don't like that. That's super ugly. So it's up there, it's tight. A formed duct would be super good, but that's not going to happen. So now I'll show you what's up there, and then we'll do a quick hookup of power just to make it run and see if the vents work. Here we are underneath the dash. This is behind the instrument panel. We can see the driver's side vent up there. It's very tight packaging, but it does work. One last step before we hook up the power and see if it works. We need to put the vents in. There we go. Now, as you can tell by the noise, we got it working, and we can declare victory. Woohoo! We still need to install the controls on the engine side of the system, but that is a topic for another video. Maybe this one.